Joining me on the line now is Dr. Troy Page, a head teacher and author. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, Dr. Page. I must start by saying a lot of what we are discussing is so distressing. Can you give your reaction to these very upsetting revelations about this school?
Well, thank you, Shay, for inviting me on the show. Everybody who sees those images can't fail to be horrified by the scenes. It's absolutely not what anybody would expect to see in an educational establishment or anywhere else, frankly. It's an abuse of human rights.
We obviously can't speak, of course, for other schools. As you say, an abuse of human rights. There are going to be many Londoners shocked that this has happened here in London. And this is perhaps at the most serious end of things. But how have you seen examples of where SEND, which just for our listeners is special educational needs and disabilities children, are dealt with in ways that do not suit their needs?
Well, to be honest, lots and lots of children who come under the umbrella of SEND, I have my doubts whether a lot of them should be in there, if I'm honest. The school system as it's currently conceived is just not very, very practical, with lots and lots of children in such a way that many children who really, in my opinion, shouldn't be labelled as SEND are becoming labelled as SEND. But yes, I mean, lots of children, basically children, all kinds of children have all kinds of needs. Everybody's an individual and therefore they have individual needs. One of the issues with the educational system more widely is that it's a mass education system and it treats people pretty much as numbers. We need an education system that is far more capable of dealing with individual needs, whether that's SEND labels or otherwise.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack with what you're saying, because I appreciate there's a real contention there around for you and your experience of those children that are labelled as SEND. But if we could for a moment focus on the ones that are, because that's what we're talking about here, is for parents, guardians, caregivers who do have children who are, in their eyes, as well as the educational system, they are SEND. What type of changes and reforms need to be happening when it comes to SEND education?
Well, I think that better diagnosis is one. I think that more special schools with more equipment, better use of technology, more staffing, because there's a terrible lack of staffing and trained staffing. There's a commission report that's out recently that's talking about the lack of skills that are in the sector. There needs to be greater emphasis on professionalism and paying people properly. Learning support assistants, what they're getting paid is absolutely ridiculous. You could get paid more in McDonald's. Nothing wrong with McDonald's, but you'd expect somebody after a lot of training should be and dealing with very complex needs, individual needs. They should be paid commensurate to their skills and the responsibility. I think there's just so much that really needs a good look at. Okay,
but I mean, some people are going to be thinking, hold on a second, where is Ofsted in all of this? Because, you know, obviously we are totally aware of Ofsted reports. We've heard over the years when you have inspections taking place in schools. What, is it different if it's a SEND school then? Does that not come under Ofsted here? And if so, what is happening with regards to inspections? Because I suspect that's what parents are really going to know here, is if a school is not up to the standards, well, what happens? Is Ofsted not there to report this?
Well, for a start, Ofsted is responsible for ensuring that the school is up to scratch and that they're meeting with their obligations. The problem is that there's notice given on an Ofsted inspection, so effectively what happens is all the chairs get moved around, everything gets changed in preparation for the Ofsted, because it's so punitive for the school if it all goes wrong that it's a chance you can't take. Actually, if you are genuinely interested in what goes on in a school, you shouldn't be giving notice. You should be just turning up. Okay, just turning up is one aspect, and I appreciate we haven't got an Ofsted, representative to give us that perspective. If I may, I'd like to refer to a comment that David's father, Ricardo,
told the BBC's Today programme when he approached the school after his son had started to come home being really distressed from these calming rooms. And he said he felt very much that after a year and a half, he just had to turn up at the school and say, I need to see this room. I mean, is that practically what parents need to be now doing to ensure that their children are being treated fairly and safely in SEND schools? That surely can't be the way that things are going to be managed here.
Well, I think that parents have every right to see the conditions under which their children are being held. I mean, I feel like I'm talking about custody and, you know, a police station or something like that.
Sure.
But if you've seen the images, you can see what I'm talking about. I think calming room, if ever there was a euphemism, that's it. This is confinement. And you have to ask, why are children being confined in this way? The children are being sent to schools for education purposes, not to be confined. I think the parent was absolutely right to want to see it, and every parent should be able to see what's going on in the schools.
How much power then do parents actually have against an educational system which, as you've just said, is geared up very much to try to support all children, but who have so many different requirements and specific needs, especially, of course, as you've mentioned, when it comes to SEND schools, where there will be different needs for learning disabilities, or even for that matter for severe mental disorders. What is a parent supposed to do? It does come across here as a bit of a minefield.
Yes, it does. I think the first thing for parents to understand is that actually they do have a lot of rights. It is their child after all. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with a parent speaking to a head teacher and asking for a tour of the school and to see what the conditions are like, and to ask actually quite probing questions, because I think if that video footage tells a parent anything, it says, look, don't make assumptions that everything's, you know, great at school. You need to be sure for yourself as a parent that what's happening there is consistent with what your expectations might be. You've brought that child up, you're bringing that child up, you've loved that child is everything to you, and I think you've absolutely got to check to make sure that the school is offering what they should. And one thing I would say as well is there are many good schools that are doing a fantastic job under very seriously underfunded circumstances, and I think that you know, it's easy for me to sit here and bash schools, but actually they're doing a wonderful job given the difficulties that they're facing. And most of my criticism is actually at the government and underfunding over decades.
The thing is, today is the 27th of November 2024. There's going to be so many Londoners who are just horrified at this footage, because it's not from 20 or 30 years ago. It's only a couple of years ago, 2015, 2017. That's not far gone. And we're talking about London. We talk about this being the greatest city in the world. And yet clearly what you're outlining here is the way in which, unfortunately, children's voices are just that, voiceless. They are invisible in a society whereby, as you've said, an educational system that needs reform and changes. How far do you think we have to go before we can feel that there is the right safeguarding for children in SEND education?
Yes, well, I think SEND education is always going to be a challenge, because essentially what you're saying is that the mass conception of education, which is that we can teach lots of people, say 30 children, with one teacher, that doesn't work with SEND education, and everybody knows that. The more individual the needs are of a student, of a child, the ratio has to come right down, and the money just isn't there. And this is why you're seeing problems. This is why you're seeing people locked away, because frankly, you know, the system can barely afford one teacher per 30 children. It definitely can't afford 30 teachers per 30 children. And I know the ratios are smaller in special educational needs schools, but they're not small enough. One-to-one attention, even if you gave one-to-one attention to a lot of children with very individual needs, even that is a challenge. So once you move to sort of grouping children with very individual needs together and then expecting one teacher to be able to help, it's nigh on impossible. You can get learning support assistants that are highly trained, but they're few and far between, because, as I said before, the salaries that are being paid are just absolutely pathetic, quite frankly. and definitely not commensurate to the skill level and the training and the education that professional has had to undertake. So it's very, very difficult if you want to make the current conception of education work. Now, what I've done, I've written a book actually just recently. It's called Future Proofing Education. It's available on Amazon and all good bookshops. But just thought I'd have a little plug there. But but it is a really important thing, a really important book in the sense that I've produced a manifesto there where I actually go into real depth there on what the government should be doing and what parents can do to affect change, because I'm not just about talking about these things. I want things to change.
Tangible difference.
We cannot go on seeing children confined and bounced off of walls. I mean, it's just not acceptable. And the thing is, we're on the cusp, and I want to finish on a big high here.
Okay.
And what I want to say is that technology is offering personalised solutions for students within schools. So I'm not saying bring people out of schools, even though I've created online schools myself, which are very successful for the right kind of student. They're not right for everybody, but they are right for particular kinds of student, and indeed they're right for lots of children with special educational needs. But I'm a big supporter of mainstream schooling. I just want it to work, and I want it to be a safe place. And I think if we can get technology into the classroom, we can actually get to a place where children can learn more autonomously with support.
It's quite a different way of thinking, transformational on many different levels. Dr. Troy Page, pleasure having you on Radio London, head teacher and author, as he mentions, of